Welcome everyone to another video of Vinyl Addict. This is Chili and I am going to be ranking the Black Crowes catalog. Now before I get into this, please don't forget to hit the like button, comment on this video and share this video. And if you still haven't, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bells for updates on seeing new videos. Now with that out of the way, I'm going to pretty much rank studio albums, and there's a couple of live albums on here, and the ones that I chose, they seem to be the project of what they were getting into. It's just not just a live album for a live album's sake. However, there was something behind it, because they have like 4 or 5 live albums, and so there'll be a couple of those in there. And so without further ado, now I'm starting off with number 13, and it's Lions. Okay, so this album, I'm going to try to get through these really quick. This album, at first when it came out, of course, whenever an album comes out by the Black Crowes, I'm just like enthralled by it. I love it and everything. But then having to go through this collection again and listening to these albums again, it's not like I felt anything different from when I first heard them. It's just that some other albums, of course, have come out prior and or after this release that has kind of surpassed it. So the one thing I loved about this album, first of all, I thought it started off really strong with Midnight from the Inside Out, Lickin', which was the lead-in single on here, and they're just pretty much playing, or Rich Robinson is playing with that toggle switch, and that's very unique. It was very cool. Sounded very Sly Stone, and they always kind of have all these different influences of funk and psychedelic and whatnot, and southern rock. They kind of throw it all in here. However, I just felt like it started off strong and it kind of weakened in the middle. Some of the stuff on here, some of the songs like Young Man, Old Man, and Cosmic Friend, they just kind of, to me, it didn't really hold up as a whole complete album. It was just sort of just like kind of, it was just going to too many directions for me. But I do like the last song, Lay It All On Me, which is a great album closer. They're really good at that. So there's Lions, okay, at number 13. Now number 12 is what they put out last year, 1972. Now this is just pretty much cover songs from the year 1972. And this is them pretty much getting back into the studio. They just did that whole 2-year anniversary tour for Shake Your Money Maker, and so they're kind of getting their feet wet and just kind of like getting back into the studio, recording stuff, and how to get reacquainted with playing great rock and roll and writing great rock and roll is recording great rock and roll cover songs. And from a year which rock and roll was pretty much at its peak in 1972, there was just all kinds of different things coming out, and they kind of gathered from a lot of different rock and roll from that period. However, I felt like it was not long enough. It was 6 songs. It seems like it was just you're just getting started. However, we'll go through the tracks. Rocks Off, the first song by the Stones. Now, I'm very critical when it comes to Stones. It's my favorite band, and yes, it's great that they chose to do Rocks Off from XL on Main Street. However, I felt that they did not put the horn section in this song, the horn arrangement. And that's pretty much very, when you hear Rocks Off, it's like, I can't unhear it that way. You know what I mean? That right there kind of went, oh, So that kind of, that song is probably the only one I had an issue with. The Slider from T-Rex is awesome. You Wear It Well, Rod Stewart, Easy to Slip. But I think my favorite song was the next one, the David Bowie song, Moon Age Daydream. I didn't think that that would be the one that would just be like, wow, that was like the greatest cover I felt I've ever heard of that song. There's a couple of them out there. Zen Gorilla did a great cover of that. But however, they're really good, and Papa Was a Rolling Stone is the last song, and it's the epic song. It's the one that they pretty much be playing everywhere they go, as far as showcasing this album. They kind of put that song on their set list. But 1972, it was short and sweet. We needed a little bit more. Now, the next one, 11, Wiser Time, there's way too much for one thing, but it's okay. However, this live album is pretty much it's half acoustic and half electric. Now that's what they were doing on this tour. This is the last tour before they pretty much broke up and was on hiatus till they just came back recently. Now this here is 4 nights and their highlights from New York City, from October, November, November 2, 4, 5, and 6. And, it pretty much, they go through their whole entire catalog. There's like 26 songs on here. And they also do cover songs, right? They do Little Feat, of course. They do Bob Dylan. They do the Flying Burrito Brothers, and they do some great B-sides like Darling of the Underground Press, the Remedy B-side, Downtown Money Waster. They have great deep cuts. Of course, they always do the great deep cuts from their albums, but however, they also give you something new that wasn't on any album, like Exit. It's a great album. But I felt like, it was just way, it didn't know what it wanted to be. That was the thing. They should have kept, there's 4 records on there. They should have had 2 acoustic and then 2 electric. Whether it's just like, it's kind of like jumbling back and forth. And it was just like, it was like kind of killing the vibe for me. So if they would have just kept it like an unplugged performance, just had all those together, that would have been great. Okay. That leads us to this one, number 10, Brothers of a Feather, which is just all acoustic, and it's just the 2 brothers. And this is a great album. They've taken, there's like 16 songs on here. They got new ones like Cold Boy Smile, which is awesome. That's my favorite song on the album. They do Darling of the Underground Press, again, just these 2 guys. They do some songs from each of their own solo albums, like Someday Past the Sunset, which is a Chris Robinson song, and then Rich will play one of his songs, which is Forgiven Song. And of course, Cursed Diamond is really cool. Driving Wheel, which is a cool cover song from Tom Rush. But the best song on here is Thorn on My Pride, which is like an 11-12 minute song, and they start doing what the Black Crowes are great for doing, is just jamming out, and they jam it out for like 11 minutes. He gets on a harmonica. It's great. So Brothers of a Feather. Now, number 9 is Crowology. Now, this was the album that they put out for their fans, pretty much. It's, going through their catalog and going back in the studio and re-recording some of these songs acoustically, which would become that tour for Wiser of the Time, which is that 4 record set. But it all started off from this, and this is really cool. I mean, there's some bands that can't really go in and redo their catalog and give you something just as good as the originals. I recently did a video on YouTube when they did on the review of the Songs of Surrender, and their songs, their new versions did not hold up to the older ones. It just made you want to listen to the older ones, where this one was just as great as all their original versions, and you did not feel cheated when listening to this. And just, there's some of them were different approaches, and still I think maybe because they are a blues-based rock band and it's easier to take it in a different directions, whereas like kind of U2's music was more modern, kind of alternative, and you kind of there's a lot of effects on the guitar and everything. Where if you remove that and try to do something different, there's just a lot of space. So what are you going to do with that? So whereas they know how to just take these old songs, deep cuts, hits, whatever, and just reinterpret them, and it's just a great listening experience from front to back. Crowology, and it's like that is what the great title is, because it was their, at the time, their gift to their fans, because they were like calling it quits at the time. So there you go. So that's number 9. Now number 8, another project where they were going in with Jimmy Page, and it didn't last that long, and it was sad because I had tickets for their show, and it was the Black Crowes and Jimmy Page, and then you had the Cult opening up, and by this time they were done. There's some drama, of course, and then they quit the tour. However, this album here, it's a 3-record set, and they mainly do a lot of Led Zeppelin stuff on here. Because they had some issues with their record label, they weren't allowed to put the Black Crow stuff that Jimmy Page plays on, which I thought would have been awesome, of course. But here you have the Black Crowes going through deep cuts of like Zeppelin songs that they love, from like the Physical Graffiti album. There's a lot of Physical Graffiti in here. Custard Pie, Sick Again, In My Time of Dying. And then they do like the B-side, Hey Hey What Can I Do? So they're really coming in here as fans of Led Zeppelin, and getting to work with Jimmy Page is great, and listening to the stuff that them and Jimmy love, whether it was Oh Well by Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac, some of the stuff on the first and second album of Zeppelin, of course, as well. But this was a great moment for the Black Crowes. Too bad it didn't continue that year, but and they weren't able to put some Black Crow stuff on here. So moving on to number 7, a lot of people would think that this should be really higher in this ranking. However, this album, their debut, which even Chris Robinson says is the perfect album, regarding their last tour. I wasn't into this album. I got into them on their second album. This stuff here, when I heard Jealous Again, the lead-in single, I thought that was cool. It was very Stonesy, right? And Sister Luck was cool. They're throwing some stuff on the radio, which was really cool. There's a lot of singles on here. She Talks to Angels was really cool. Because this is the time with all the hair bands and whatnot, and they were that was still kind of the musical climate, and these guys, they seemed like they were different. They were coming more from that kind of 70s thing to it, but it didn't really it wasn't as overt as the albums that followed, and so I felt like this is a great album. There's a lot of good songs on here. Hard to Handle, their cover of the Otis Redding song, that one I really liked. I really enjoyed. I just felt it sounded still like kind of like bar music, and I felt like it was good, but it wasn't. I knew that perhaps there would be better coming, and there were, but like this album here, number 6 is 3 Snakes and One Charm. I have the what do you call it on here? The tattoo of that, an interpretation of it. This was at one point, this I don't know about now, but this is Chris Robinson's favorite album, and this one has like a great collection of songs that where it's just it was supposedly a really dark time for the band, Under a Mountain, and these songs, and Good Friday, they're starting not to get along. That's about Chris and Rich. However, there's some great moments on here like Blackberry, which is kind of harping back to like that kind of hard to handle vibe, and Nebuchadnezzar was a great track. I just felt like the whole album because they started having acoustic stuff on here with Bring On, and How Much for Your Wings. So it was kind of just stretching out to different kinds of places, and I really enjoyed this album, especially like One Mirror Too Many was a great song, and I saw this on the opening night of the tour. So that's why it really was an album that kind of just like went, wow, just like I couldn't stop listening to it. So that is my number 6. Now coming down to the top 5. I feel like this is like their creative peak as far as like every band has it. Whether it was like I was talking about Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti, you got The Wall by Pink Floyd, you know, you got the White Album by the Beatles, Exile on Main Street by the Stones, and this one would be that. It was very late in the game too, but however, they still put out an album with just all kinds of different Americana kinds of vibes going on in here and styles, and it was just like whether it was just like hootenanny songs like Garden Gate, you know, and then just rock like this is actually 2 albums, I guess, in one, because it's Before the Frost and Until the Freeze. But songs on here like the Garden Gate, like the Shady Grove, they all sound. The structure of this album was them to record in the studio live with an audience, and that is showcased on here. This thing, this little DVD called the Cabin Fever. It's Levon Helm's cabin, his studio from the band. So yeah, and I saw this tour, of course. I got the little ticket here. This was at House of Blues. But yeah, this album, when it first came out, I was just like, this is the one that they finally made that album, you know, where it's just creatively, it was just amazing. And the one song I really like on here is the one that Rich Robinson sings, and that one is What Is Home, and it sounds like a Crosby, Stills kind of Nash type of song. It's really cool, but they also go into like weird funky stuff on here. You know, it's just it's that album, just like the White Album. It's just like all these different kinds of styles and everything, and the idea that they're recording it live with an audience in the studio, and you know, they have to be quiet until the song is completely over. Then they will applaud and everything. So it's live in the studio, right? So it was a good concept, and it was great that they were still coming up with new, interesting ideas. And so the Black Crowes, and then that's number 5 for Before the Frost, Until the Freeze. Now number 4. Woo, here's this one. By Your Side. Now this was an album that I felt before was rated really kind of low, but then coming back into this, I scored really high. This is what I was talking about, where they focus on a different idea, just like whether it was just recording an album live with an audience in the studio. This one is, you know, getting back to roots, but just a rock album. It's not really southern or anything like that, or it doesn't go through these different what they're usually known for. This was a straight ahead rock album. Kevin Shirley pretty much just, you know, pretty much got them to say, hey, just pick up your guitar like you were 16 and just play some rock songs, some riffs and whatnot. And Rich is the only one playing the guitar on here, and so he said he's opened up a big space for the bassist and the keyboardist. And this is just, yeah, it's a straight ahead rock album, which is really cool. It's sort of harping back to that first album, but it's just better, I felt, you know. And so Go Faster, Kicking My Heart Around, and they're kind of taking stuff from like classic rock bands. Like By Your Side is them like doing Tumbling Dice, you know what I mean. And Horsehead is very Zeppelin with the way the drums, how he's playing it, because they just pretty much was finished with the whole Jimmy Page thing, you know what I mean. And so they're still kind of like going through like a Zeppelin kind of vibe, you know, because they're still fresh off that whole Zeppelin Jimmy Page project. And so they picked up a lot of tricks and a lot of ideas, and they realized how to what's the magic behind Zeppelin, you know, because Jimmy pretty much kind of told them like what and how they made these albums and stuff, and they kind of throw that in here in the way they write these songs. And so it's really cool, and it's a straight ahead rock album. It's like an AC/DC album from beginning to end. It's great. So By Your Side is number 4. Now, number 3 is Warpaint. Now, this album was, when it first came out, this is the one when they came back together again, right? Because they'll take these little hiatuses, or it's like, oh, well, breaking up and whatever. But when they came back with this album, it was like probably, to me, it was mellow. It was sort of just like, I always looked at this as the best album the Eagles never wrote. Okay, because it's just, I guess some would say, when upon hearing this, that it was so mellow and it was so southern rock, but it was also kind of like, are they going adult contemporary or whatever? But no, they still had some of the elements what made the Crows really great, and even like some little psychedelic stuff in here. But it wasn't overt like lines. They just did the right amount of taking all of the elements from what you remember them and writing just great songs there. And so what we have here from beginning to end, you know, Goodbye Daughters of the Revolution, that was the introduction to this album. And you know, they were so, you knew that they loved this album as well, because they just toured and played the album in its completion at around a time when a lot of bands were starting to get all retro with their catalog and play, you know, this whole album, like the 10th anniversary album of this album, you know, by the Eagles, and they're gonna just play, you know, the whole album from beginning to end. They were doing that with their new album. We're gonna play the new album from beginning to end. It's that good, you know what I mean? And then they also, you know, made a video of that, and they played it from beginning to end, which was great. So Walk, Be Believer, Walk was an amazing song. There's a part in that song where just everyone just cuts out, and you just hear you hear Chris singing, scatting, you know. Oh, Josephine, Evergreen. See, these are, Evergreen is great, and Who We See, The Deep. And I went to this tour as well, and you know, it was just, it wasn't the tour where they played every song though. I wish I would have went to that. But yeah, they kind of mixed in all these other songs within this, and this was in Laughlin, and they had a great set, you know. However, I would have wished that they would have played more of these songs, because I think Whoa Mule is probably one of the best album closers of the Black Crowes. It's just so weird It's so strange, but it's just there's a great vibe to that one. There's gold in them hills. God's got it. You know, in that track, Steve Gorman comes out with the big bass drum, and he's like in the marching band, which is really cool. Wounded Bird, moving on down the line, Locust Street. Yeah, from beginning to end. It's classic kind of southern rock. It has it's like I said, it has like that kind of Eagles vibe. It's very mellow, but it's like the best album the Eagles never wrote. And it's the Black Crowes, Warpaint. Okay, so coming down to number 2. Now, I mentioned earlier when talking about the Shake Your Money Maker when it came out, it was good, but it wasn't the album that got me into them. It was their second album. And that is coming in at number 2, which is Southern Harmony Musical Companion. I feel like this album just blew away the other album, and because I didn't really, they had some great songs on the first album, but it was just this. It seemed like they made that album so they can make this album. They made that album so everyone could buy that album and they could say, you know what, we want to make the album now that we want to make, and it's this one. And when I heard this, I was hearing who they really wanted, what they were really all about. They were really more about being like the Allman Brothers meets, just the Faces and just all these bands, of the past, and they're kind of like carrying it, carrying all these traditions of all these bands, because all of them are not, that kind of music was pretty much not being represented. You had the grunge thing going on, but then you had this band, playing this kind of music, but it's their own way of doing it, and the way they were presented themselves aesthetically, the way they looked, they were starting to wear the clothing, the 70s kind of clothing, the bell bottoms, and they were just kind of doing their own thing. No one could really talk down to them because they seemed like they were this band that already were making music that was way beyond how people their age would make. Something like even Shake Your Money Maker would be something like a band that's developing would make that album as their third album. Well, that was their first one. So what would this, if this is their follow-up, what could they do after this, right? Because this album started off with Sting Me and Remedy, which was their first song. And a lot of the songs on here are longer. The guitar playing on here, and they're more complex. The compositions and just the theme of the lyrics, they're more personal, and they're just Hotel Illness. It sounded like something that you've heard before. It was all reminiscent of some kind of rock and roll, classic rock and roll that you've heard before, but you didn't. And that was the good thing about it, because it was a band that you could finally hear that rooted itself to all this stuff that time has forgot. As the whole grunge thing was taking flight, it was great that there was a band like this that was kind of carrying the torch, and they did not seem contrived, or they didn't seem pretentious. They just seemed like that was them, and Bad Luck, Blue Eyes, Goodbye, all these songs, Thorn on My Pride, it was just from beginning to end was great. I don't really have I think the only song I don't really care about is the cover from the Bob Marley, well, Time Will Tell. However, all the songs that they came up with on here are great. So that's number 2, and a Southern Harmony Musical Companion. Now, how could you top that? And that was my number 1, and that was Amorica. And from the moment I got this on the first day, and of course, and then even that last album, I saw that tour, and I seen this, and I was just into this band. That was it. And then when getting this album on the first day, dropping that needle and hearing Gone, I really heard A Conspiracy. There was a video for it where, um, Chris is in white face and he has like black, um, like a Alice Cooper thing, right? And it was different, of course, because I'm like, it was weird though because it didn't really represent that album, this whole album. And when you listen to this from beginning to end, and this was originally called Tall, and hearing that those sessions and the songs that were on there, and some of them are kept as B-sides or whatnot, but it was very disjointed and it didn't hold together well until they re-recorded a lot of the songs, and which would make it on here. But Hi-Hat Blues was really great with that whole kind of Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of solo at the end, and of course there's my favorite, Cursed Diamond. Nonfiction, she gave good Sunflower. From beginning to end, everything is perfect on here. Page 25, London, Ballad in Urgency, and Wiser Time. All these songs, from right when I'm hearing them in real time, I'm enjoying it. There was nothing in this, and it seemed like it was a totally different trip from the Southern Harmony one where they were heading, and it still had those elements of something harping to the past, rooted rock, but like again, it's them that are doing it, and it's still kind of new, and it's new because no one's doing it, and as no one's doing it as well as they are, and Downtown Money Waster, and of course Descending, from beginning to end. And see, they're ready, of course, and then the album cover was What's This All About? That was the first thing when I saw this album cover. So they're really harping back to the 70s. They got this Hustler magazine cover, and they put it in the front and became banned later on, of course. They just had it black with the triangle. However, it was a bold statement. It was, and listening to it, I feel this is their best album, number one. What is your thoughts on Amorica, or this top 5, or my whole ranking, which I just went through with you guys? Leave me some comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. All right, with that, I'll shut up, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.